Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Southwest Missouri SCORE workshop. This is a hybrid workshop, so we have people both in the room and online. And for those of you online, you'll have the chat to be able to ask questions, and I will be there monitoring the chat and translate those over to our presenter. Just a quick introduction to SCORE. SCORE is a nationwide nonprofit that offers business mentoring and resources. So our mentoring services are free. You can request those online at score.org. And we have a wide variety of resources, on-demand courses, webinars, templates, all kinds of really great resources for business. You can find all of that at score.org, and our mentors will be happy to help you identify the things that would help you best. Our presenter today is John Fleming. John is actually a former chapter chair for our Southwest Missouri SCORE chapter here, and a business whiz. So thank you, John, for being here today, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Am I in
You're good.
good place? Okay. Well, as Katie said, if she didn't tell you, she is the branch manager of this library, and goes to an awful lot of work to set these up, and so we really appreciate that. My background is really I'm an industrial engineer, and spent really 43 years with two large corporations. One of them was General Motors, and the other one was United Technologies. And most of my job around the world was almost like an internal consultant. And I have my own consulting business and have had for quite some time. So the topic of today is, as this slide says, the business model canvas. And part of that is what's called value proposition canvas. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the background of these. You may be familiar with them or not. That's okay. But the intent is to provide you with an alternative to writing a business plan. So I may appear to be a little critical of business plans, but I think this particular approach is a definite improvement, and I hope you find that as well as we go through. I don't pretend to be an expert, but I have studied this for a few years, and I'm very impressed by the scope of this particular topic. I'm going to hold up a couple of books here. Get them. These are the books that do an excellent job of describing this particular topic. This is called the Business Model Generation. This is all about the canvas, and this is the value proposition. And they were both written by a gentleman whose name is Alexander Osterwilder. And I'll explain a little bit more about him and his business. The thing that I really want you to come away with is there's so much information out there on the web about this approach to understanding your business that it's easily accessible. So don't, he's provided so much information on the internet about these approaches. Feel free to use them as you go forward. A little early humor here. And of course, we all know that for many business owners, you wear many hats. And so it makes good sense that you're having a staff meeting with yourself. This is the agenda. It is very generic, not specific to any type of business. It is intended to provide you with the tools to complete the business model canvas and to do the value proposition. And I'm going to be providing the tools to do that and have the time for you to actually work on them as we near the end of today. So it is intended to be hands-on. I also want to kind of a little bit of a disclaimer. Some of the things that I'm going to be presenting are going to come across as being somewhat negative. And if that's intentional. And what I mean by that is our mission is to increase the probability of success for your business because the probability of failure is extremely high. And so if I talk about the downside, you'll understand why. Because we would prefer that you are a success and not a failure. Again, if we can, just take a minute to introduce yourselves. If you would introduce yourself while you're here.
Sure. Stacy Fry, and I work with companies as our fractional financial officer, and we use this tool in some of our stuff. I just want to see
Okay,
it presented.
very good. Okay. You want to do the online?
Sure.
Virtual?
Yeah, you all, I just posted in the chat, but if you would introduce yourself in the chat, we'd love to know who you are and your business idea or concept, and any prior experience in managing or starting a business. And I'll make sure that John hears that. Probably take people just a moment to type in there. Let's see. We've got 4 folks online with us today. And they're being shot.
Okay. You want me to proceed? Or?
Yeah, why don't you proceed? And if
Okay,
I get
very
some
good.
introductions here, I'll go
All
ahead
right.
and read those out for you.
Anyway, this is kind of challenging the status quo. And what we really mean by that is that, yes, I am going to be talking about business plans. I'm going to not go into great detail about it. I think for me, I was a business coach probably 15, 16 years ago, and we stressed the value of business plans, okay, and how to write them. They're very painful. They take a tremendous amount of work, and more often than not, they don't yield the results like you would think they would. So this is considered to be an alternative approach. So that's the point of this.
I've got a couple introductions here in the chat now, John.
Okay.
3 now. Sorry, one moment. Let's see, Kelsey Burke is here with us. Kelsey and her husband started Burke Custom Woodworks, which is a custom woodworking company, and they don't have any prior business experience, but he's a carpenter and she's a nurse. Alan is a death care industry consultant, and Mary is a Benedictine trained spiritual director. Her job is to sit with folks as they discern their questions about spirituality, and often her clients are clergy women.
All right.
It's an interesting
Yeah.
mix.
Welcome to our class. So again, just to clarify some very brief terms here. One, of course, is the business plan. The business plan is intended to be a guide. It is most often requested by lenders, by banks, basically to validate that your business plan makes sense, that you're going to make money, and you're going to be able to pay off the loan. And as it says, you typically need a plan when you're applying for a business loan. Most banks require it. And it is a guide. I will have to tell you that having mentored over 300 clients, and those that have written business plans, they are really somewhat pie in the sky. And even large companies very rarely take the time to update their business plans, even though their business has shifted dramatically over time. Okay. The business model canvas. It is a strategic and lean startup template for developing a new or an existing business model. It's a 1-page visual chart with 9 elements, and I'm not going to read them to you because we're going to go through each one of them in detail as we go forward. This is an example of the Ford Motor Company business model. And, it shows you the interrelationships of customers, suppliers, and dealers. And it's great. Probably not that much difference between the one that General Motors has or Chrysler has or Toyota or whatever. It's really almost like an interrelationship map. But it doesn't really tell you anything about how it works. It's just a great illustration. Another form is this particular one, and this is a comparison of computers or laptops actually between Hewlett Packard on the left and Dell on the right. And this slide originally came about because Dell was a much more streamlined company. You ordered their product online, you could track the production of your laptop, and you knew when it was going to be delivered, as opposed to the Hewlett Packard model, which usually built their laptops to stock or to inventory, which meant in this day and age, the technology of cameras, smartphones, laptops is changing rapidly. If you own one today, it's already obsolete. Okay, so that's the reality. But there is this are business models that are different than what we're going to be talking about. One is those examples are more about the mechanics of the business. They don't talk about whether or not the business is successful, because major corporations that have been around for years and years, they already have a pretty good idea what works and what doesn't. But if you're starting up a business, it's a different situation. So again, the business plan, cost of failed business, limitations of the business plan, and an improved method for starting your business using the business model canvas. So we're kind of going to jump ahead to a little bit of the negative side, and that is the cost of failed business. I'm not going to read all these word for word, but you can kind of imagine that these various factors, it is very traumatic. It's very time consuming. It is not uncommon to incur a significant amount of debt. Bankruptcy occurs. I've had many clients that I've had to help them through the bankruptcy process over the years. And certainly it has an impact on your psychology as well. And of course, it has an impact on your family. And it can be financially devastating and shattered dreams. So enough of that. We don't really want that to happen to you. So we want to do everything we can to ensure the higher probability of success. Too often times, clients have the perception that they have a really good business idea. Maybe they do, but that does not automatically mean that that particular business should go forward. The key, of course, is do your customers need or want that particular product? And that's question number one. Are you building a business that is in demand? Do you have the necessary skill set? And of course, that's really what role we play as mentors, is to provide you with the tools that would ensure or at least improve your success. Oftentimes, I have had clients that have had business plans written by third parties. That is not a good approach because the work that just as we're going to complete the canvas today, it has to be done by you. You can't have somebody else do it for you because it's the process of understanding your business that's so important only to you. So again, questioning research. And of course, the assumptions have to be validated by you. And I won't get into faulty business models yet. For execution, just a simple example, and if you have an illustration that you'd like to share with us, that's fine. I have had clients that have bought signed lease agreements in strip malls 6 months prior to the business even starting. I've had people buy buildings or lease buildings before they started. And in the 3 examples that I can think of, all three of them never start. Okay. So when you sign a 6-month lease, guess what? You're stuck. Okay. Lack of funding is oftentimes an issue. Right, wrong person, driver's seat. And really, that's a little bit tough. But what I'm really trying to do is stress the point that there's a certain degree of wherewithal that you need to have in order to be successful. Failure to test. I think who is who's the woman that started the pretzel company? Annie's, is it?
Oh, the
I
one
think
in
it's
the mall?
yeah, I mean, but again, a very simplistic illustration of testing your product is giving them away. Okay, now if you're selling cars, you may not want to give them away. Okay, but if you are providing a service, you could provide that service to someone for nothing, just to prove or validate the fact that your service is better than your competition. So testing to validate is a very useful technique. Yeah, waiting to determine if the concept is viable once the product is built, leases are signed, and money is so on. And so anyway, that's kind of the cart before the horse. That wouldn't be a good approach either. And business plans rarely survive first contact. And what that's really meant is that in small businesses, what the intent of the business was in the beginning often changes over time. And so even if you have a business plan and you've written one, you need to expect that you're going to be flexible because you're going to adjust your business to meet the demands of your clients. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on here. Okay. All right. What do we mean by unknowns? Okay. Ever-changing market conditions. Can anybody think of what might have an impact on the market?
Economy?
The economy, right? Okay. What about competitors? I mean, in just about every business, there's some competitor threat. You may not be aware of it at the time, but there could be one. Okay. And as Katie said, the ever-changing economic factors. One of the most devastating things that I can recall that happened here a few years ago was, I think it was 2007, was the ice storm that took place here.
Mm-hmm.
And hundreds of businesses went under. They had no power and hard to survive. Government regulations can have a devastating effect. Tax rates, the unpredictable supply chain. I think we've all kind of lived that. And many of the auto plants, I've already seen even yesterday on the news that several of the automobile and truck plants are shut down this week because they can't get parts. Availability of employees, that's another big one. So you, these unknowns are real. They can occur, they will occur. You have to expect that they will occur. And you better know how you're going to deal with them. Okay, ahead of time. Okay.
We had a few other contributions over here. Post-pandemic concerns, Mary says, and
Yeah.
Donald mentioned supply also, and also someone comes up with a new and better item.
Right, yeah. So again, I'm sure the slide shows disappointment, the empty box, but it's really called contingency planning. And one of my classes that I teach through the university is project management. I'm a certified project manager. And in project management, when you're building a building, a multi-billion-dollar building or $1 million building, you better know what you're going to do when something goes wrong. And that's called risk management. The same rule applies in your business. Okay. If you lose an employee, what are you gonna do? Okay, we're gonna expand on that a little later. Again, the business model can strategic management tool. It's a visual chart. It uses a technique that's called the value proposition, which we'll explain in great detail later. And it was initially proposed by this gentleman, Alexander Osterwalder. And those particular books were written by him back in 2008. So it's been around for some time, and it's only been in the last 4 to 5 years that we begin teaching this particular method with school. So again, we're going to be talking about these two tools, the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas. And there is a handout, which let me find it here. I don't know.
I'll make sure we got it for them online.
These are the two right here that I'm going to be referring to.
Got it.
So the templates that are handed out, one of them is that particular form, which are the 9 elements. One of them is blank, and the other one is provides with an explanation in the 9 boxes as to what they really mean. And we're going to be talking more about that going forward. So again, why change the approach? I talked about it a little bit later. One is things are going very fast today. The market is changing. Economic factors are changing. Tax rates are changing. Things are changing, and you need to be very nimble. Okay. Oftentimes business plans are written. It's not that they're a bad thing to be written, but they're very static. And it'd be great if businesses would take the time to update them on a very frequent basis as their business changes, but I'd have to admit that that's rarely done. So this really becomes nothing but a document that's put in a file drawer and nobody looks at it again.
We had a quick question in the chat here, John. Mary says that she did a business canvas 5 or 6 years ago and is curious about how that has changed and how it's remained the same. Maybe you'll touch on that, but I wanted to
give me that one more time.
She did a business canvas 5 or 6
Okay.
years ago and is curious about how it's changed and how it's remained the same.
I don't know if I can really address that, really. I don't, you mean the canvas itself, how it's changed?
Yes.
If it's changed significantly, I'm not that familiar with the changes that have been undertaken. Are you at all aware of any changes? No, I'm not. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't modify your canvas over time. You could, which certainly makes sense. But I'm not aware of any radical changes that have been made to it. Okay.
Gotcha.
The whole point of this really slide, which we're going to get into, is it's all focused on the customer. You have to know who your customers are. You have to know their demographics. You have to know that they, in fact, want your product, they need your product, and that you can solve their problem. And that's really the purpose of the element of this. This is called the value proposition. Again, what we're going to do here is we're going to show you a very short video on the 9 elements of the business model canvas. You need to pull it up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the interesting things about
Sorry about that. I'm actually gonna, for those of you online, in case you can't hear well what's going on in the room, I will post the YouTube link in the chat. So you can watch it on your own, or if you can hear it fine, that's great. And I'll get those handout links in the chat here in a moment too. Oh, Mary clarified her question while I'm setting this up, which is how her own canvas has changed since she's been in practice.
Oh, okay.
So she's curious to find
Right,
that out.
right.
Sorry about that, Mary.
Right.
Okay, here is the link to the YouTube video. We'll be starting right now.
Okay.
come over there and help with that. And I'm actually gonna
Okay.
move this way. I'm realizing. Your spot was just fine for you, so
Thank you.
just escape them here. Move to our-
This is a YouTube video that's available. Very nicely done, very brief. And give you a good idea of the elements of the canvas.
So one of the interesting things about thinking about a startup is how is your company going to be organized? And what we now know is the most efficient way to think about all the pieces, just all the parts, is by a business model. And so the next question is, okay, Steve, you just told me to think about a business model, but what is a business model? What are all the pieces? Well, let's take a look. The business model is how a company creates value for itself while delivering products or services for its customers. Now, if you think about it, in the old days, we think about how to organize a company around functional organizations. We think, no, a company is about its sales department or its engineering department, and you would draw an org chart. But now we're going to draw a very different diagram. We're going to draw a diagram of how to think about all the pieces of a business. And so let's take a look at these 9 boxes. 9 boxes to describe any company from the world's largest to a 2-person startup starting in your parents' garage. Let's take a look at the first piece called the value proposition. The value proposition answers the question, what are you building and for who? The value proposition says, hey, it's not about your idea or product, it's about solving a problem or a need for a customer. That is, what pain are you solving? What gain are you creating? And more importantly, who are your customers? Now, value proposition is a fancy word for what product or service are you building. This is where you normally would list all your features and here's all the speeds and feeds and benefits and whatever, but we're really going to be asking a different question than I've been used to. It's not all about your technology. Your technology is just a part of the value proposition. Customers really don't care about your technology. The customers are trying to solve a problem or fulfill a need. By the way, we'll be talking about this through multiple lectures. The difference between a problem and a need is a problem is I have an accounting problem or I want to use a word processor. And those types of products solve problems. But there are other things that human beings do, like I want to be entertained or I want to have a date. Those are some basic hardwired social needs. Or I want to communicate with my friends like Facebook or Twitter. Those are needs. Needs are different than problems. And by the way, if you could find products that solve needs, your total available market, as you'll see later, is huge compared to I solve specific problems. So the next thing is, who are my customers? Who are they and why would they buy? And as you'll hear a number of times, your customers do not exist to buy, you exist for them. And what you're going to do by getting out of the building is figuring out all their geographic, social characteristics, demographics, such that you actually could draw and put up a picture on your wall of who the archetype is or who the persona is of your customer. And it turns out that in most startups, you might have more than 1 or 2 or 3 types of customer archetypes and personas, but you need to understand them in detail. And there is no possible way you could have anything but a hypothesis on day 1 of who they are. The next is channels. How does your product over here get to your customers over here? And we use distribution channels to do that. Now, what's really interesting is pre-1990s, the only channel to get to a customer was a physical channel. That is, you went to a store, you had salespeople, there was physical distribution. But since the mid-1990s, in the last couple of decades, we now have virtual channels, the web, mobile, cloud. And so distribution channels, the first question you want to ask is, how will I be selling and how will I be distributing my products? Are they through physical channels or are they web mobile? Or even today, almost every physical channel also has a web presence. What is the relationship of how your product gets from your company to the customers? Customer relationships, it's kind of the fourth piece. And customer relationships has a really interesting interaction with these other three pieces. It basically says, how do I get customers? How do I keep them? And how do I grow them? And just like thinking about distribution channels, these are very different for web mobile than they are for physical channels. But visually, they kind of look like this double-sided funnel. So let's just take a look at quickly a web example. In getting customers, you're going to be worrying about how do I acquire them? That is, how do I get them even to my website? How do I activate them? That is, how do I make them do something? And then later on, we'll see after I got them, how do I keep them around? That is, how do I not lose them through attrition and churn? And then what can I do once I have customers to make them spend more money or use my product even more? And so one of the things we'll be thinking about is, how do I get, keep, and grow customers? And just like every other step, you might have hypotheses on day one, but you're only going to figure this out when you're out of the building. The next thing is revenue streams. How do you actually make money from your product or service being sold to customer segments? You know, revenue streams basically ask the question, what value is the customer paying for? And then actually has you think about, what's the strategy of how I'm going to capture that value? Is it I'm going to just have a direct sale and it's a transaction based on price? Is it a freemium model where I'm going to give away the product for free and hope that some portion convert later? Is it a license or subscription model? That revenue model is different than the pricing tactics. That is, what is the dollar or pound amount or euro amount that I'm going to be charging? Again, the only way to figure this out is being able to interact with tens or hundreds or thousands of customers so you finally understand what the right revenue stream and revenue model is. The next piece you want to think about is, what are the key resources? What do you need to make the business model work? What assets are important? And what's an example of an asset in a key resource? Well, finance. Do you need capital? Do you need a line of credit? Some assets and resources are physical. Do you need physical plants like a manufacturing line? Do you need specialized machines? Do you need vans for delivery? Do you need cars? Is there something else you need? Is there intellectual property you need? Is there patents you need to acquire or protect? Do you need to acquire customer lists? Or is it just that you need to get great people, great software programmers in a specific area, or great hardware designers, or great manufacturing people? And then finally, again, the interaction between intellectual and human capital that's another key resource. What specifically do you need to do to keep these people, and who are they? The next piece is, who are your key partners and suppliers? And partnerships are kind of interesting, is we need to ask ourselves, before what's the deal, is what exactly are we acquiring from partners? And also, what activities are they going to perform and when? And this is where startups sometimes make a mistake of thinking, well, large companies do partnerships, I guess I need those too on day one. Turns out the types of partnerships you need in year one are certainly not the ones you're going to need in year 3 or 5 or 10. And the types of partnerships could be strategic alliances, joint ventures, just regular suppliers and buyers. And so you need to be thinking through who they are and actually getting out of the building and testing them. Next are key activities. What's the most important things you need to do for the business to make the business model work? Are you in the production business? Are you making something? Or are you in the problem solving business, like you're doing consulting or engineering? Or are you managing supply chains? What are the key activities you need to become expert at? And then finally, all this adds up on the left-hand side over here to cost. What are the costs and expenses to operate the business model? One of the interesting things about cost is it's not just the obvious ones like people or buildings or materials. What you're all going to be asking are, what are the entire costs to operate our business model? And so you want to think about what are the most important costs you need to worry about? What are the most expensive resources you're going to need to pay for? And what key activities are the most expensive? And then you want to ask the typical accounting things, what are fixed costs? What are variable costs? What are economies of scale? And you want to start getting a good handle on what it is that will end up costing you money to run your business.
All right, let's
Take it
we'll
back to
shift
the
back
PowerPoint.
to the PowerPoint presentation now.
Okay.
So we're going to be reviewing these again. But the value proposition, which is anyway, in the center, it's solving the customer's problems. Okay. And I think that's oftentimes forgotten by startups, and that is they have a great idea. They're almost starting at the wrong end. Find out what the customers want, find out what the customer's problems are, and then come up with a business that's going to address them. Okay. Who's your customer? And he talks a little briefly about your social demographic interests. And we're going to talk a little bit more of that later. The channels, again, it has changed. You know, it used to be that, you know, you would go to the mall, you would go to a larger department store, maybe, or Home Depot, whatever, and find what you like, and you'd pick it up and you take it home, or you'd order something and it would be shipped by truck. But today, it's the virtual options are endless, and that's quite a radical change. Customers here, customer relationships, again, it's pretty basic, but it's kind of that three-legged stool. I refer to it as. One is you got to get them, then you've got to keep them, and that is a challenge in itself. And then, of course, hopefully grow, meaning you can expand your sales to them. The revenue streams here, the lower right-hand corner is how you're going to make money. Easier said than done. The resources, very dependent upon the type of business you're going to start. Do you need an office? Maybe not. Maybe you can work from your home. Do you need vehicles, patents? Some businesses are very cost burdensome, if you will. Your business partners, up here in the upper left, talking really primarily about your suppliers, your investors, key activities, your software development, production, promotion, shipping, problem solving, and costs. Just throw it out there. What do you think are typically the most expensive elements of a business? Any thoughts on that?
Personal.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, depends on the type of business.
Does.
Whether you're making things or selling your
Right.
time.
Right. Yeah, certainly if you're in the manufacturing business, then you've got all kinds of costs of suppliers. Inventory in manufacturing is usually your single largest cost.
And equipment.
Yeah.
to make them-
But certainly people is a major cost as well. And so you have to be thinking about all those things in advance. I'm not going to read this graph to you, but hopefully the virtual attendees will have access to this.
Mhm.
Okay. And there's actually another handout that's going to even provide much greater detail into these 9 elements beyond this, but this is certainly very helpful in giving you a very brief explanation of what is the purpose of each of those 9 elements of the canvas. You'll notice that in red, you have the value proposition, and you have the customer segments on the far right. The first thing that we're going to be focusing on toward the end of this particular workshop is what is it we provide to the customer? What do they want? And what is the problem that you're going to solve? Business model fit. You know who your customers are. You understand how your particular service or product meets the need or meets the value of the customer. And the business model is profitable and scalable. Problem solution fit occurs when you have evidence that the customers care about certain jobs, pains, and gains. You prove the existence of the problem and have designed a value proposition that addresses those customers' jobs, pains, and gains. And then we're going to actually walk through a real example of this. Fortunately, you still do not have a clear evidence that your customer really care enough about your value proposition to buy it. This is kind of a painful step. And what I mean by that is that it takes a lot of legwork in the beginning to find out really what it is that customers want, what is their problem. And it takes a lot of canvassing, one-to-one or telephone calls to do that. A lot of people don't like to do that, but you're trying to get as much information you can to validate what is the problem that you are going to address that they have. One, of course, is you have evidence of the value proposition actually creating value. And you've gone through the long iterative process of running tests that have validated your assumptions. Again, this particular step is just another example of something that is required to create a valid business model canvas. And really that is not addressed in a business plan at all. The last element is number 3. You have evidence that your value is embedded in a profitable, scalable business. And you have done the laborious task back and forth between designing and creating value for the customers. You have found the right business model that delivers optimum profitability. And just to add on here, I threw a question in here that says, what factors prevent scalability? Any thoughts on that from anybody? What scalability is your ability to grow, right? You increase your sales, increase your reach, increase your client base. What things kind of get in the way of doing that?
Funding.
Funding. It's kind of what Alan
Funding
said.
is certainly a big one.
Financing.
What did you say?
But financing, similar
Financing.
answer, yeah.
Okay. Another one can be people,
Resources.
people. Okay.
Personnel. Mhm.
It may require, in my job, one of my jobs was to increase manufacturing. I worked in manufacturing, so building new manufacturing plants to increase capacity, increase sales, both in the car business and in the jet engine business, which was my primary business. But very expensive to do. Again, this kind of divides that particular template, if you will, into these 3 areas. The green, do they want it? And the red up above is, can we build it? And is it viable? Now, we're going to switch to another video. And this is the video that is looking at the value proposition. And so again, Katie, I'm going to ask you to shift to that particular video. And we'll take a couple of minutes to watch it. And then we're going to walk through an actual example of the value proposition.
Hello, this is Anna at Braillsburg. In our last video, we have discovered how does the Lean Canvas work for validating your startup business model. Today, we will focus on the value your product offers to your customers by learning how to use the value proposition canvas. We will also see how the value proposition canvas works for Uber, back when it was getting off the ground. If you have any questions or ideas along the way, please share them with us in the comments. Both startups and existing businesses fight for their place in the market by introducing their products and services. However, not all of them are destined to succeed with customers. More than half of new propositions fail to meet customers' expectations and fade away. You can avoid failure only if you identify your customers' problems and give them the design, features, and functionality they want. And that's what a value proposition canvas can help you with. The value proposition canvas originates from the business canvas. This is a sort of shortened business plan designed to create the value of your idea by breaking it down into 9 essential components. 2 of them, unique value proposition and customer segments, form the value proposition canvas, the tool that allows you to design, test, and visualize the value of your product for customers in a structured way. The value proposition canvas is divided into 2 parts, the customer profile, circle, and the value map, square. Each part consists of 3 sections that describe specific features of a customer or product respectively. The circle on the right refers to the customer segment. It describes the motivation to buy the product and consists of jobs to be done, gains, and pains. This part explains why the customer needs this product. The square on the left features the value map by listing products and services, as well as describing pain relievers and gain creators. The best way to understand the practicality of the value proposition canvas is to investigate it through an example. We've decided to use Uber as an example, back in the time of its foundation, and focus on one customer segment, passengers. So, here we go. Let's go back in time to when Uber did not exist yet. How would Uber's founders describe taxi passengers' pains back then? We start with the customer profile and jobs your customers need to have done. Don't focus on the functional jobs only. Emotional and social ones are also essential. We pick the following jobs for taxi service users: contact a good service, control costs for the ride, wait for the cab for some unknown amount of time, and pay for the trip. Pains include blockages and problems your customers may face trying to get the jobs done. In our case, taxi customers could experience low cab availability, bad drivers can happen, need to book a cab in advance, and issues with payment for the taxi service, cash or card. The next step is to specify gains. They are more than just the opposite of the pains. Gains describe positive outcomes the customer expects when the job is getting done. These include benefits, inspirations, and results like trusted driver, 0 time and payment, 1-click order or cancellation, and tracking your cab. Once we have shaped the customer profile, we can move forward to the value map. Here we begin with products and services your value proposition offers to get the jobs done. Our list consists of Passengers mobile app, Uber Pop, Uber X, and Black Cab. Then we need to describe how these products or services can minimize or reduce the mentioned pains and outline in which way they create the gains. Pain relievers are meant to improve the customer experience. We chose 24/7, 365 availability of cabs, driver ratings, arrival and travel time prediction, and flawless automatic payment. As game creators, an Uber customer can expect a rating system, automatic credit card payments, the ability to manage all 3 details on a single platform, and navigating your trip on the map. Value proposition canvas aims at achieving a fit between what the customer wants and what your product or service can offer to overcome pains and generate gains. In practice, your customer profile may have tons of jobs to be done, pains and gains, but the value map outlines which of them you focus on. The more items from the right parts have matches on the left one, the higher the probability that your product will strike home. Do not forget that the value proposition canvas is a detailed extract from the lean canvas or business model canvas. Therefore, the success of your future product depends on how good the entire canvas is. A holistic approach to assessing what your customer wants and what he can provide is the path to success. That was the intro to the value proposition canvas. If you found this video helpful, press thumbs up and subscribe for the Railsware YouTube channel. Suggest us ideas on the topics for our next videos in the comments below. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.
Just minimize tripping.
Okay. So again, I hope that gave you a little bit of a sense of the value proposition campus, which of course that those are integral into the business model canvas. Those are segments of it. And again, they're available on YouTube. There are quite a number of videos that go into quite a bit of length on both of these, the value proposition and the business model generation. So take advantage of them if you need a refresher. Again, it starts really with the customer relationships and the customer segments. And that's where the beginning of the process is. So let's take a look at it in a little more detail. So all about value. And this particular, I don't even remember where I got this information. I apologize for that. But it talks about some of the typical startup mistakes that we see. You can kind of, this kind of reinforces the message today, and that is number one is building a business that nobody wants. That would be a very serious showstopper. Shooting, you can see number two is hiring poorly, and that's certainly a challenge today. I have several friends that own their own businesses, and unfortunately, the turnover rate is extremely high because people have options. If they don't like working at your business, it's not that difficult in this day and age to go somewhere else. So finding loyalty can be a real issue. So anyway, interesting slide, but just kind of be aware that those can be a challenge. Okay. So again, the value proposition is part of the business model canvas. Okay, it focuses on the jobs, the pains and gains. And I can just a little simple example that kind of fits into that Uber illustration. I was in New York. I traveled a lot, and in New York several years ago, and I think it was probably prior to Uber or Lyft existing. But anyway, I don't know how many times I tried to get a taxi cab in New York, and I was there for a week, and I was never successful one time. I never could get a taxi. I learned the subway system as a matter of default, but trying to hail a cab was impossible. And it probably is better today because of Uber and Lyft, I would think. Yeah, right there on your phone, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So, okay. Again, outline how your customers measure success, focus on job pains and gains. And of course, one is always this key of differentiation. In other words, what is it that sets your business apart from, I don't know, like I have used Uber before. I haven't used Lyft. Is there any advantage over one versus the other? Does anybody know?
They're pretty much about the same.
About the same?
Yeah,
I don't know.
there must be, right?
You know,
Or there, but I don't know what it is.
Certainly we're pretty familiar, I think, with the advantages of using your cell phone to hail an Uber driver as opposed to standing out there in the middle of the street and not getting run over by a taxi cab. Okay. So I'm sure that the taxi cab companies aren't very happy with the competition, right? So you want to outperform the competition, and easy to say, but is your business difficult to copy? That would be a real great advantage if you could come up with some way to more or less make your business bulletproof. easier said than done. Again, you have the blank template. It is available online, by the way, if you don't get it through this workshop. But hopefully you can use it going forward to begin to complete that one for your own business. We're going to focus now on the value proposition. And this is the template for it. And I think we have that handout here. It's right here, this one. Here, there's actually a couple of them. There's this one here. And then there's the one that has the example. This is the one with the examples too. So, here. The handout that has the example I think can be very helpful to you in completing your own, because it includes the Tesla campus, it has Toyota, and it has something like Uber or Tesla or Lyft as an illustration. So they're here in this handout. And again, under customer profile, it says the set of customer characteristics that you assume, observe, and verify. I had a client a few years ago that made children's clothing, primarily for girls. And so her idea was to make clothing for young girls. And what had kind of helped kick off her business was the fact that her daughter was always wearing the clothing that she made, and other parents would comment on those clothing. You know, wow, you know, where'd you buy those? Well, I didn't buy them anywhere. I made them. And the more she talked to parents about it, it became more and more complicated, because I told her that, you know, if you're going to make this into a business, you better find out what those parents want. Okay. So she and her mother made over 100 phone calls to members through the PTA and Girl Scouts and other organizations. Through an interview process, they developed a questionnaire to find out what kind of clothing that they would like for their girls. And it turned out to be quite interesting. And it turned out to be very successful for her. But she did a lot of research in the beginning to find out what the customer's needs were. And anyway, I thought it was fits this example pretty well. Again, we're going to go further into this thing here. I'm going to jump forward here a little bit. So again, it talks about how do you do this? Well, you start with that value proposition canvas. You can use Post-it notes or whatever you want to use. You can handwrite, whatever, and begin to complete the customer profile. Did I just mess that up? What did I do here? Oh, okay. So you have to also be very specific. I mean, I think that sometimes people think that their product kind of serves the masses. There may be instances where that's true. Maybe Halloween candy is a good example of of serving the masses. I don't know. Kids will eat just about everything. But if it's a product or a service you offer, who is it that you intend to serve? And so you better narrow down what segment of the customer base that really suits your needs. And so that's really the beginning. What groups of people or organizations who share similar characteristics that you aim to reach, okay? So if you were the, trying to think of it, blank. I'm trying to think of it. Oh, somebody may be familiar, for example, with, there's a car that's called the Mini Cooper. Okay, so how would you describe your client? If that were your target market?
Economical. Save money saving?
Maybe. Do you think they have a large family?
No.
No. They may be single, right? Could be single men, single women.
Yeah.
And there's probably, I really don't know, but I'm just, supposing that they probably like sporty little cars, and they probably are economical. They're fun to drive. They're not the cheapest car on the market, by the way. They're pretty expensive, even though they're small. But I mean, that's what the process you've got to go through, is defining the demographic of the product or service you offer. Again, my background, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, is spent many years in the auto industry. But in the beginning, going back to Henry Ford, in the early 1900s, he made a car that was called the Model T. That was the only car that Henry Ford made. He made millions of them. It was a car for the masses. But today, if you want to go out there and looking for a car, there's a car that fits just about every possible demographic that you can think of, and Ford Motor Company offers them all. Okay, but they didn't start there, and that's my point. And that is, if you can find a target market that is going to that you can meet the needs for, start there. You may expand over time, so don't try to start off with a whole bunch of different demographic groups, because it's just going to probably overload your capability at the beginning. This is a good slide because it does a pretty good job of breaking down what is market segmentation. And I would challenge you to use a format like this, take a blank piece of paper and figure it out. Okay. What is their age? Male, female? What is their income range? Married, single, ethnic background, local, national, regional, international. Who are you serving? Where are they? What are the benefits that you can provide? How frequently are they going to be able to buy your products? You don't, if you're going to the grocery store, the staples that most of us typically think about is bread, right? And milk, and maybe cheese, and could be frozen meals. I don't know what, but the point of it is those particular products are products that have a high demand rate, right? I mean, people are buying them every day, so be careful about trying to serve a particular need that has a very infrequent demand. And then, of course, you've got the thing over there called psychographics. What do they like to do? They like to parachute out of airplanes. Do they like to hike? Do they like to canoe? Do they fish? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? So the more you can find out about your clients, the better off you are, because you're trying to solve their problem. Okay.
Alan mentioned, what about segmenting on religion? Maybe that would fall under values.
Yes, it would. Yes, very definitely. Sure. If that's your, that's your focus segment, if that's your target market, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Now we're going to go back into kind of relive this taxi illustration that we saw in that video, taxi passenger. And again, here is a lot of, it talks about it's customer jobs. it's kind of a little bit of a mind warp for me because I don't really think about them as jobs. But if you really think about it, hailing a taxi to me in New York was a hassle. So it was a job, you know, and then you gotta, if you gotta get one, then you gotta find one, and then you gotta give them directions and, you know, how do they want to be paid? Are you gonna give them a tip? You know, so kind of think about jobs as kind of what I call hassle factors. Okay, things that you don't want to do. Okay. Again, you wait, you're competing with other customers, and certainly that was the case because most of the taxis that I tried to hail already had passengers in them. So you couldn't get the taxi drivers to stop. Could be an unsafe driver, and the taxis can take you to the cleaners. I actually had that happen to me a number of times. I worked in Asia Pacific for a number of years, and I got ripped off by an awful lot of taxi drivers in China and in South Korea. Because you just didn't know. You just didn't know what the fares were. You also didn't know where you were going. So you had to trust the taxi drivers to get you from point A to point B without a clue where your point B was. Again, the gains are professional, easy payment, fair price, arrive on time. So again, now this is kind of a little bit of a twist. Maybe it's an element of complexity that you wouldn't want to go through, but what they're suggesting is that you rank the gains, rank the pains, rank the problems, so that you're able to kind of zero in more specifically to what really meets the customer's needs. And so here, what this does is it ranks them. In this case, assuming that whoever did this, at least that was their preference, that they felt that waiting a long time for a taxi was a major pain. Okay. And then here, arriving on time was more important possibly than the price. So I think if it's something that you can do, I think it's worth doing. So again, you're selecting your segment, identify what are the jobs. Again, we're talking about what are the pains, what is it they don't like to do. Identify the gains, and then come up with the solution which you have prioritized. So again, this is the progression here in this one illustration of how you create value for your customer. Pretty straightforward, not too really, it's really not that complicated, truthfully. So again, this ultimately was the answer, and that is an app on your phone. And it works pretty slick. So I think they definitely, whoever came up with it, I don't know who the inventor was of Uber or Lyft. Which one came first? Anybody know?
Probably
I feel like
Uber,
it was
right?
Uber, but I won't guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't know, but great idea. Pain relievers, how exactly your products and services eliminate specific customer pains. Yeah, I think it's been very successful. I don't really know. I know we use the term here professional drivers. I'm not so sure necessarily that Uber drivers are professional drivers. But we'll kind of leave that one alone. So again, we're looking at ranking and again, saving time, drivers, rating assistance, and so on. So that's what he kind of calls the ranking them an essential nice to haves and so on. So this is the value proposition canvas completed. And so once you've done that, that's where you begin in the business model generation. So Again, this kind of, it's almost a little bit of overkill. I apologize for that, where you're maybe eliminating certain things that you thought you might do to reduce the pains, but not absolutely necessary. And, okay, adjust over time. So again, don't hesitate to make changes. It's not static, it's dynamic. And the best fit for the customer. And I kind of like this. As a matter of fact, this is a handout that you'll have. And it is right here. So this is the one here. So the purpose of this particular handout, and this is our taxi smartphone app, helps taxi passengers who want to book a taxi, minimizing waiting time for a taxi and enjoying affordable prices, you know, unlike typical taxi services by phone. So this is a good way to start. So why don't we just take a couple of minutes here and ask the virtual attendees to do this, okay?
Mhm. We do have one question, but we'll save it for just a minute while we're engaging in this activity.
Assuming they can actually, of course, you really don't even need this piece of paper. You can just write it on a blank piece of paper.
Sure.
It's just as easily.
Yeah, if you'd like to, virtual attendees, use that phrasing on the screen there. Just a little example of what you might fill in there.
So this is the body. Maybe somebody might be willing to share what they have done. We're not seeking perfection here. We're just,
Rough draft.
we're just a rough draft of this. One that comes to my mind as I look at this is Amazon. Okay. You know, our website, Amazon, right, helps buyers who want to buy just about anything, right? By minimizing what? Travel, right?
Oh, yeah. Like going somewhere and finding what you thought you wanted, it isn't really there, so when you know it's gonna be there
Right?
tomorrow.
Wasting your time,
Yeah.
you know, going places and enjoying what you might say, hopefully reasonable prices, right? Because you can competitively shop, right? And unlike brick and mortar stores. So, anybody want to share one with us?
I don't have anything yet. in the
Okay.
chat, so.
Well, we don't have to.
Okay.
They got the drift of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Since Amazon, you got reviews on the products and all kinds of stuff that you don't have if you just run to the brick and mortar.
And,
Hold on.
yeah,
I've got Ooh, I have two now.
what?
Want to hear some?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's hear some.
Okay, let's see. So Alan says our service helps businesses to maximize their experience and value at a low price while maximizing their business profits. I'm trying to remember what Alan's business from. I'll go back up to the top. Deaf care industry consultant was his consulting, basically.
What kind of consulting again?
In his initial introduction, he said, deaf care industry consulting, funeral homes.
Oh,
Consulting to
okay.
funeral
All right.
homes.
Okay.
Interesting. I've got another one here from Kelsey. Our carpentry business helps property owners who want to update or repair by personalizing home repairs and minimizing costs, unlike Lowe's or Home Depot.
Okay. Good. All right.
Very good.
So anyway, this is intended to be kind of a your first step in to the value proposition. Okay. Okay. Whoops, what did this do?
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. Again, clarify customer needs, how to create value, extract value by completing that simple little template, validate by talking to customers. It'd be best if you could do those kind of interviews face to face and take those insights into updating your the canvas. So.
Please.
Sorry about that. Anyway, apologize for that. I thought I muted it, but obviously didn't. Okay. Okay. This is intended to be the activity for the class, and that is that you begin using the blank value proposition canvas to define the customer's jobs, the customer's pains, what could occur as a customer gain, and then design the value proposition to meet those needs. So if any of you want to start working on that while we're here, you can. It's really up to the attendees whether they want to take a few minutes and begin working on. I think what I'd like to see at this point would be at least some work done in this element here of the customer jobs and customer pains. So what is, what are your clients, what is it they're doing that they would prefer not to do? Okay, which translates into some kind of a pain. Okay. One of our virtual attendees is in the funeral services, correct? Is that right? Okay. This may not fit or not, but a lot of people don't do any funeral planning until the death of a family member. Okay. And that's a very awkward phase to be sitting across for somebody in a funeral home, trying to figure out, well, what kind of a service are we going to have? I mean, are we going to do visitation? Are we going to, are we going to need to buy a casket? Is it going to be cremation? In other words, there's a lot of things, having been in that position for my own parents, it's a very stressful time, right? Those are pains, right? Pains. So to me, the ultimate gain is how do you convince your clients that all that should be done ahead of time? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right? Can you think of any other illustrations of any kind of business at all that you can think of where customers just, there's something that they're doing today that they just would rather not do?
Well, I'm thinking about, when I think about just my own as a customer, when I think about myself as a customer and when COVID happened and lots of stores and restaurants started to offer apps and curbside pickup, like that has been a huge benefit for me as just like a busy working person and a parent and things like that. And so if a store or a restaurant has an app and they'll do that curbside delivery,
Yes.
like I'm going
Right.
to choose that store over
Right.
another store.
Well, I have a neighbor, for example, that orders all of their groceries through Walmart.
Yeah. So do I.
And they don't deliver it, but they pick the products from their grocery list and they bag them, and they go to the store and they tell them where to park their car,
Mhm.
and they bring them out and put them in their car for
Yes.
them. I mean, that's huge business today.
We still go touch and pick it up, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we'd save money if we didn't.
Yes, because you also don't buy, I mean, I think you don't buy things you don't intend to buy
Right,
quite as much
right.
that way.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, like Walgreens does pick up and they'll have it ready in 10 minutes. And I think about, Walmart, you usually get 24, 8 to 24 hours before you can get a pickup window. So that's a downside, but Target will get you in 2 hours.
Wow.
So it's all about like
Yeah,
what
right.
you need in that
Right.
moment. Do I need it fast? Do I need it cheaper?
Right.
The Walgreens and just like you got a common cold and you're snotting and sneezing and you need a box of tissues and something else and to just go to Walgreens and pick it up and.
Yeah, and I will pay
Without having
more
to go
for
to
that
the store.
convenience, right? I will pay more that I can park right by the door. Or if I do the pickup, that I can
Right.
get it ready in 5
Right.
minutes
Yeah.
for me.
Well, the auto industry, I mean, there is somewhat of a trend, right, to buying cars online,
Mhm.
right? You have Carvana, and there's another one where you can look at their inventory online and you can finance
It's
it too.
changed the world with buying cars. You don't go negotiate the price of cars. You pretty much know what it's gonna cost when you go in.
Hmm.
And actually, I mean, historically, that I think it's a good example of pains because most people don't like to shop for cars. They may want one,
Yeah,
but who wants to deal with
No.
those salespeople,
right.
right? Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you can clean up that process, that's a win-win.
Yeah,
People, I think, probably would even be willing to pay a little bit more
yes.
rather than trying to go through the negotiation process.
But they don't really negotiate anymore. I mean, it's,
They
Yeah,
don't.
not much.
no, I
no.
mean, you go online, you see what one costs and you go buy it.
That's right, So anyway, I just, we're just kind of wandering a little bit, but I think it helps a little bit to kind of think outside the box a little bit about what industries have done a good job of trying to take away those pains.
Yeah,
Okay. And so once you've done the value proposition side of this, then you've really almost solved 50% of the business model canvas. Because you've already determined that your business is in fact going to solve those problems. Okay. And you just got to structure a business around it. So that's really the purpose of this. And any questions at all? I know we've gone through this pretty quick.
yeah, do you type your question in the chat? I do have one here that's been hanging out that I would like to ask from Alan. So he says, this is great from an internal strategic standpoint, but how do you utilize this information to develop a document for the financial community or a business plan? So I think maybe what Alan is asking is if I'm seeking funding.
Well,
Correct me if I'm wrong,
one of the
Alan.
handouts is that template for the business plan. it's provided.
Mhm.
So if he doesn't have it, it's one of the handouts and it's right behind you. Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
This one here?
no, the next one over. Okay. Well, this one, these two, this one, this kind of explains the difference between
Yeah.
them, okay? And that one outlines the actual process of running a business plan. And we actually have a class on how to write a business plan as well. Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying we do this, but would we also then have to write a traditional business plan if we were seeking funding, for example, from a bank? Or would something, in your experience, would something like this suffice?
Well, unfortunately, I think that most lending institutions are still going to require that you provide a business plan. However, I would like to see you have completed the business model canvas. And that you can prove how much time and energy you put into proving that your business, in fact, will be a success. Because a business plan does not. A business plan is really just a concept document. I mean, I hate to say it, it's really smoke and mirrors. It's just based upon an assumption that you can make this or provide this service, and it's going to cost you this much money to operate it. You're going to come up with the projections that nobody believes. I mean,
You gotta give them something, so they
You
know
gotta
how
give 'em
much money
something.
you need and how much money you want,
right.
why you want it, but I don't know that it has to be all this huge, long version of
Right.
that
Mhm.
many sections.
Yeah.
You could probably have 3 or 4 of the sections there and accomplish everything the bank would want.
Right. Yeah.
What are we doing? What's
The main thing that it's almost shameful, and one of these examples that's in that one handout is the time and energy was put into creating a 60-page business plan. Well, banks, there's really only 1 or 2 pages that they want to look at. They want to know how quickly you're going to pay off the loan. You know, I mean, so they may be a necessity, but they're widely overrated, is my opinion.
Okay, I've got another question here from Kelsey. So she mentions that some parts of the presentation are specific to businesses with products. Are there any differences for service-based companies?
Not really. It's exactly the same. It's the same process.
The service is the product.
It is. Yeah. I mean, let's try to plug in a service. One that comes to my mind might be what if we picked women's skin products?
That was just the service, house painting. Somebody come paint your house, the service.
Yeah.
Lawn mowers.
Right.
Yard work,
Lawn mower,
just
yeah.
just a service.
That's a service.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what's the pain? The pain of a lawn mowing is who wants to mow their own
Right.
lawn?
Maybe you
Convenience.
physically can't do it.
Maybe
you
can't.
have an ailment, you're aged,
Right. You know.
or you're working.
Or you don't want to paint, or like you say, you don't want to paint because maybe you don't like the heights, you don't like getting up on the ladder.
Maybe you just don't have the same skill set.
Yeah,
Maybe you don't.
can't do it well.
Right.
Yeah.
But, healthcare products could easily fit into that, so, yeah, it's, same stuff, really.
Mhm.
Anything else from anybody at all? Have we solved everybody's problem?
All the world's problems. Don't have anything else right this moment. Anything else from you, Stacy?
All right.
We good.
Well, we thank you all for attending. And hopefully all the handouts and access to this information will be helpful to you.
Very good. Just as a reminder, we do send out a follow-up email within about a week or so, sometimes sooner, that will include a recording of this session and, a link to those handouts that we shared with you today. Someone had asked about a certificate. I still don't have an answer about that from our chapter admin. I think that was Alan. So I will follow up with an email on that one as soon as I find out the answer. Thank you all for coming. I hope you'll check out our upcoming workshops on our chapter website, which is swmissouri.score.org. We've got lots of great workshops coming up in November as well. Thanks, everybody.